Hi guys!
Hello guys.
My name is Lade Owolabi and this is
Juwon Owolabi.
Otherwise known as PJ, Pastor Juwon.
Pastor Juwon.
On today's video, as you can already tell from the title, we're going to be talking about forgiveness. Can you really forgive and forget? Well, without any further ado, let's just get right into the video. So the first thing we want to talk about is the reality of imperfection. PJ, do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, first of all, when we talk about forgiveness, we need to talk about unforgiveness, because forgiveness will not be an issue if we don't have an issue with unforgiveness. So, and I think one of the ways to, make our life easy, or one of the easiest way to forgive is to recognize the imperfections of people. You need to know that you are not perfect. When it comes to your spouse now, whether in relation to your spouse or to other people, we need to know that people are not perfect. We are not perfect. And because of that imperfection, then we will always have to offend one another. Not just because of imperfection alone. At times, our understanding differs, and our understanding, most times is based on the way we are raised, our experiences in life, exposures, history, and all those things. So all those things, dictate the way we behave, the way we think, and because of that, there are things that you will think differently from other people. Things that are acceptable to you are not acceptable to somewhere. And we have to. It's a global village, so the reality of living together is essential. So because of that, we just need to deal with the
imperfections,
idiosyncrasies of others. So I think once you realize that people are not perfect and people are of different understanding and people cannot act beyond their understanding, then you just need to settle that it's going to come. Offense is going to come.
Wow, offense is going to come. So don't live in denial and say, my husband is the perfect guy. He's not going to do anything to hurt me. He can love you and still hurt you.
Ignorantly.
Yes. But let me quickly, before we go ahead to talk about other things when it comes to this imperfection, let me define what forgiveness is. And let me just read so that it's not something I'm making up, okay? From what I found and what we also think, forgiveness is the conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or a group that has harmed you, regardless of whether or not they deserve your forgiveness. The feeling of revenge, of resentment towards a person or a group that has harmed you, regardless of whether or not they deserve your forgiveness. We were talking about offense earlier.
I think let me quickly say something. Do you know why most of the times when somebody offends us, we term them to be enemies? Because that's one of the things. That's one of the effects of unforgiveness in our heart. We term them to be our enemies. And one thing I thought about some time ago is that if you want to talk about the reality of enemies, then you also are somebody's enemy.
Yes.
And that's why you shouldn't even pray against your enemy. When Jesus said, love your enemy, he knows what he's saying.
Pray for them.
Because you are also somebody's enemy. Not because you did something wrong to them, but because of the difference.
Yes.
You can continue, please.
You were talking about offense earlier, and we said that it's better to expect the imperfection. If you expect imperfection, so offenses won't come as a surprise or as a shock to you. How about us being deliberate about not being the offender? Say something about that.
I think that's very, very important. Even the scripture says that offense will come. It said, but woe to the person through which the offense comes. For instance, somebody needs to betray Jesus, but it doesn't have to be Judas. So offense will come, but you can choose not to be the person through which the offense will come.
Yes.
So I think that's very, very important, and that will, like I said, that will also boils down to your level of understanding.
And that takes us to the next point, which is getting to know your spouse. That's in marriage.
Yeah.
And the knowing, although it's a lifelong thing, because I mean, we've been married for how long, and I'm still finding out some things that I've never known in my whole life, and it's lifelong. I'm going to get to know you till the day I'm no longer alive, or the day you're no longer alive. But this knowing thing, in marriage, you are together forever, as long as both of you are alive.
Yeah.
How do you deal with it? First, in marriage, getting to being intentional about knowing, and then second, just in life, maybe at work or with other people, this knowing thing, maybe with your boss.
Yeah.
Knowing who they are, knowing them, and expecting these offenses, having in mind that they are imperfect.
Okay. I think number one is to realize that the only thing that is inevitable in life is change. And people are going to change. So you don't expect that the same person you married 2 years ago is still going to be that same person this year. Okay, so the first thing is to understand yourself.
Yeah.
Understanding what it means to understand. Yeah. Understanding what it means to understand. And that you don't get that. The reality is that there are not many people who understand what understanding is. So when you go out,
so
there are so many people.
What is understanding?
I would say understanding is seeing beyond the ordinary. Is seeing into why people do what they do, not just what they do. Why people do what they do. I think that's understanding. What is under what is standing. Yeah. So I think that's for me, that's understanding. What is under, because it is what is under
that's important. That's what's more important.
Yeah, that's than what is standing. Is
so
what opposed what is standing.
The why.
The why. So if you don't understand the why, for instance, now, I eat very fast. If you don't understand why I eat very fast, you will judge me that why do I eat very, very fast. Let me tell you some of the reasons why I eat very fast. Number one, when I was growing up, I lived in a house where there are too many people, and we used to eat in the same plate. So if you don't know how to eat fast, you won't eat much. Then when I was in secondary school, I have like 10 guys living with me. So we used to eat when the food is still on fire. So I learned how to.
So you will not turn it off
when the thing is still on the cooker. That's how.
So you will not turn it off.
We will turn it off, but the thing is still cooking. The thing is still when you start eating. So it became part of me. So if that irritates someone, the person will become
Well, he doesn't eat like that anymore. Please, I have to say that, because that's weird to even think about. I mean, you eat fast.
I eat fast, but I don't eat. Of course, now I'm served. I mean, so what I'm saying is that understanding is a complicated concept that is difficult to define. I think you need to really seek for it.
Yeah.
For you to have it, not just seeking by means of reading book, but by means of also opening your mind, to receive new concepts. So know your spouse. It means that the person is going to change. So when they change, know when they change
and why they change, and why.
And not only knowing, accept the change, because it's different. It's one thing to know the change, it's another thing to accept the change.
Whoa, that was nice.
Yeah.
The next thing we want to talk about is the effects of unforgiveness. So we hear forgiveness a lot, marriage counseling, we hear forgive. But what happens when a person doesn't forgive? Because I know that it's difficult to forgive. I like to imagine that hurt, even though it's not like physical hurt, maybe cheating or betrayal, all of those things. I like to imagine it as a wound. Just like Jesus was nailed to the cross and he had a wound. But when the wound is fresh, how can you forgive? For me, I don't even really understand the concept of forgiving when the wound is fresh, because I feel like healing has to occur before forgiveness can happen. It makes more sense to me to forgive when there's now a scar.
Yeah.
The nail on Jesus's hand, it did not disappear.
There's still
a scar. So it's possible to forgive, but what are the effects of unforgiveness when I deliberately say, I know that you have even said you are sorry, but how could you do that? Why would you do that? I'm not forgiving you. What could be some of the effects of unforgiveness?
Okay, number one thing is, let me say before I answer that question, let me say number one is that it's possible for somebody to, offend you and they don't know they offend you.
That's true.
For you to not forgive somebody who don't know
the person doesn't
they
even know
offended
that.
you.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two is one of the things that actually make it easy for me. I used to tell her even before we got married that I've forgiven you in advance. Make up your mind to make sure that you are ready to forgive them. So in that case, you will not be hurt. Then I think one of the most important thing when it comes to the person that is actually offended is that it still boils down to understanding. Now, when you understand that, for instance, let me give this analogy. Jesus Christ was, on the cross of Calvary. He was nailed to the cross. He was beaten. All those things was done to him. And on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they are doing." What made him to say that? It's not just about the pain that they inflict on him. It's about the product of the pain. So you see, when you look at the process of the pain that somebody inflicted on you, you will not want to forgive. But when you look at the product of that pain, then you will have no choice than to forgive, because at the end of the day, after all those beating, all those nailing to the cross, Jesus became the King of glory.
Okay, let's bring it back home. So for instance, now, not you, but a husband cheated on his wife, and he was hiding it for the longest time out of maybe respect and honor for her. And eventually she found out, but she's now so hurt, so wounded. Which one is purpose of the pain? Well, how do you translate and interpret that to Jesus, like what you just talked about with Jesus?
All right. Number one is that now I'm relating as a believer.
Yeah.
So number one is that our purpose as a believer is to be like Christ. And there's no way you can say you are like Christ when there are no challenges that makes Christ to react in a particular way. So, for instance, you couldn't have said that, Abraham was a father of faith if he didn't have to wait for 30 years to have a boy. So, you wouldn't also say you can forgive like Christ if you don't have any offense to forgive someone else. So, you see, when you are eventually able to do that, you just killed one of the strands of the flesh in you. It's just a way of like you just grow. And you just graduated
to another
level of growth.
So it does better to you
if you are able to
forgive than the person who hurt you.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. For the person who is able to overcome that, you've grown. It's just like before you can be promoted to another class. Maybe you're in SS1, you are going to SS2. You have to go through an exam. That exam is not to destroy you, is to
for your promotion.
So I think for the lady, if she's eventually able to forgive, now she has evidence that she is like Christ.
Yeah.
And that she, at times when we go through some things and we come out of it, and you look at yourself and say, did I just come out of that thing? Because before you came into that thing, you don't believe
that you would react that way. Yeah.
But when you came out, you're not, you're not doing bad. I've changed.
And so the Bible says that we should be like Christ. And if Christ could forgive, then we should.
Yes.
But please, I like to state this clause that don't keep saying I'm going to forgive when you're in an abusive relationship. Leave. This is different from he's hitting me. Okay, I just wanted to add that clause. So we're talking about some effects of unforgiveness. One of them is hurt, pain. What else?
Hurt, pain, bitterness.
Yeah, bitterness, unforgiveness.
Let me say
very
this.
Bad.
Let me say this. Especially for true believers, most 90% of the sicknesses we experience are as a result of unforgiveness. I'm telling you.
Even cancer.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's scientific proof, but we can say this to a large extent. Like a lot of issues we deal with, especially even health-wise, that become physical are as a result of the seed of unforgiveness. Because when you are bitter, it's just something that is like a heavy weight that keeps dragging you down.
Yeah.
Dragging you down.
Exactly.
And so you're even hurting yourself more than the person that
that's the truth. Unforgiveness hurts you more than the person
that hurt you.
hurts you. Because and let me say this, if you've been in sickness for some time now, you've prayed about it, they've laid out on you, they've anointed you, and you are yet to be healed, you've used a lot of drugs, you are yet to be healed, please go and check your heart.
Just check your
heart. Is there somebody
that you have not let go of?
You haven't forgiven.
Yeah.
So that's very, very, very important. When you start with unforgiveness, maybe somebody offended you yesterday, and today you've not forgiven the person. It may not do anything, but when you begin to go 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, it's like carrying a weight in your hand.
Yeah.
For the first 2 minutes, it may not do anything.
Yeah, but
if you hold it there for 1 week,
your hand will start
that hand will paralyze. So I think that's one of the effects. Sickness, then eventually death.
So separation, divorce.
Yeah.
And death. Yeah. Oh wow. Unforgiveness is
a terrible, very, very terrible sin.
And then there's a part of the Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 that talks about love and how love doesn't keep any record of wrong.
Yeah. I think that's where the place of forgetting comes.
Can you really forgive and forget?
Yeah.
Please stay tuned for part 2 of this video. If you want to see the part 2, please let us know in the comments. The level of engagement will decide or determine how soon it comes out. Love you.